Michelle stood at the edge of the rooftop garden, her fingers tracing the cool metal railing as she gazed out at the twinkling city lights below. The warm summer breeze tousled her chestnut hair, carrying with it the faint scent of jasmine from the nearby planters. At 42, she felt both accomplished and unfulfilled. A successful architect with her own firm, yet achingly alone in the sprawling penthouse she'd designed herself. A sudden burst of laughter from the party behind her broke through her reverie. Michelle turned, observing the mix of colleagues and clients mingling over cocktails and hors d'oeuvres. She'd thrown the soiree to celebrate landing a major contract, but her heart wasn't in it. With a sigh, she smoothed her sleek black dress and prepared to rejoin her guests. As she approached the bar for a refill, a tall figure caught her eye. He stood out from the crowd, younger than most, with tousled dark hair and striking green eyes that crinkled at the corners as he smiled. Michelle found herself drawn to him, weaving through the throng until she stood beside him. "I don't believe we've met," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Michelle Reeves." He turned, those mesmerizing eyes locking onto hers. "Alex Caldwell," he replied, his voice a rich baritone that sent a shiver down her spine. "I'm here with the Weston Group. I'm their new lead engineer." Michelle's eyebrows rose. "Impressive. You seem quite young for such a position." Alex grinned, a dimple appearing in his left cheek. "I'm 28, actually. Bit of a prodigy, I suppose. But age is just a number, right?" There was a glint in his eye that made Michelle's pulse quicken. She found herself bantering easily with Alex, their conversation flowing from work to travel to shared interests. As the party wound down, she realized they'd been talking for hours. "Would you like to grab a nightcap?" Alex asked, gesturing towards the door. "I know a great little jazz bar not far from here." Michelle hesitated, acutely aware of their age difference and professional connection. But something about Alex drew her in, awakening a part of herself she'd long neglected. "I'd love to," she heard herself say. The jazz bar was intimate and dimly lit, with the smooth sounds of a saxophone filling the air. They settled into a cozy booth, knees brushing beneath the table. As they sipped their drinks, Michelle found herself opening up to Alex in a way she hadn't with anyone in years. "I've always been so focused on my career," she confessed. "I kept telling myself there'd be time for a personal life later. And now—" Alex reached across the table, his fingers intertwining with hers. "It's never too late," he said softly. "Sometimes the right person comes along when you least expect it." Michelle's heart raced at his touch. She knew she should pull away, maintain professional boundaries. But the warmth in Alex's eyes and the gentle pressure of his hand made her want to throw caution to the wind. As they left the bar, Alex offered to walk her home. The city streets were quiet, their footsteps echoing in the night air. When they reached Michelle's building, she turned to say goodnight, only to find Alex's face inches from hers. "Michelle," he murmured, his breath warm on her cheek. "I know this is fast, but I feel a connection with you. Would you have dinner with me tomorrow night?" She hesitated, her mind warring with her heart. "Alex, I'm flattered, but I'm 14 years older than you. And we'll be working together. It's complicated." He cupped her face gently, his thumb tracing her jawline. "Life is complicated, but some things are worth the risk." Before she could respond, Alex leaned in and kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, but quickly deepened into something passionate and urgent. Michelle melted into him, all her reservations momentarily forgotten as she lost herself in the heat of his embrace. When they finally parted, both breathless, Michelle knew she was in trouble. She'd crossed a line, one she wasn't sure she could uncross. But as she looked into Alex's eyes, alight with desire and something deeper, she found she didn't want to. "Yes," she whispered. "Dinner tomorrow, but we need to be discreet." Alex's answering smile was radiant. He kissed her once more, briefly but tenderly before bidding her goodnight. As Michelle watched him walk away, she felt a mixture of exhilaration and trepidation. She was embarking on something potentially dangerous, but undeniably thrilling. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of stolen moments and clandestine meetings. By day, Michelle and Alex maintained a professional facade, their interactions cordial but distant. But nights and weekends were filled with passionate encounters and intimate conversations that left them both craving more. They met in out-of-the-way restaurants and hidden corners of the city, always hyper-aware of the need for discretion. Michelle found herself feeling more alive than she had in years, rediscovering parts of herself she'd thought long dormant. Alex's youthful energy and zest for life were infectious, pushing her out of her comfort zone in the best possible ways. One lazy Sunday morning, as they lay tangled in Michelle's sheets, Alex propped himself up on an elbow and gazed at her intently. "What are you thinking?" Michelle asked, tracing patterns on his bare chest. "I'm thinking about how much I want to shout from the rooftops that I'm falling in love with you," he replied, his voice husky with emotion. Michelle's breath caught in her throat. They'd been careful to keep things casual, never discussing the future or labeling what they had. But in that moment, she realized she felt the same way. "Alex," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "I care for you deeply, but we have to be realistic. The age difference, our work situation, it's not sustainable." He silenced her with a kiss, pouring all his feelings into the gesture. When he pulled back, his eyes were fierce with determination. "I don't care about any of that," he insisted. "I've never felt this way about anyone before. We can make it work, Michelle. I know we can." She wanted to believe him, to throw caution to the wind and fully embrace what they had. But years of prioritizing her career and protecting her heart made her hesitate. "Let's just enjoy what we have now," she said softly, pulling him close. "We don't need to complicate things." Alex nodded, but Michelle could see the disappointment in his eyes. She pushed down the guilt rising in her chest, focusing instead on losing herself in his embrace once more. As summer faded into autumn, Michelle found it increasingly difficult to compartmentalize her feelings for Alex. Their stolen moments together were intoxicating, but the secrecy was taking its toll. She caught herself daydreaming during meetings, her mind wandering to memories of Alex's touch, his laugh, the way he looked at her like she was the only woman in the world. One crisp October evening, they were working late at the office, poring over blueprints for a new project. Most of the staff had gone home, leaving them alone in the dimly lit conference room. As Alex leaned over to point out a detail, his arm brushing against hers, Michelle felt the familiar spark of electricity between them. Without thinking, she turned and captured his lips in a searing kiss. Alex responded immediately, pulling her close as papers scattered to the floor. They came together with a desperate intensity, months of pent-up longing and stolen moments culminating in a passionate embrace. It wasn't until they heard the sound of a door closing that reality came crashing back. They sprang apart, straightening clothes and hair with shaking hands. Michelle's heart pounded as she realized how careless they'd been. "We can't keep doing this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's too risky." Alex reached for her, but she stepped back. "Michelle, please, we can figure this out. I don't want to lose you." She shook her head, fighting back tears. "I'm sorry, Alex. This has to end, for both our sakes." With that, she gathered her things and fled the office, leaving a stunned Alex behind. As she drove home, tears streaming down her face, Michelle told herself she was doing the right thing, but the ache in her chest told a different story. The next few weeks were agony. Michelle threw herself into work, avoiding Alex as much as possible and keeping their interactions strictly professional when necessary. She could see the hurt and confusion in his eyes, but she steeled herself against it. This was for the best, she told herself. They both needed to move on. As the holidays approached, Michelle found herself dreading the annual company Christmas party. She considered skipping it altogether, but knew her absence would be noticed. So, on a chilly December evening, she donned a shimmering emerald gown and made her way to the lavishly decorated ballroom. She managed to avoid Alex for most of the night, making small talk with colleagues and clients. But as she stood by the bar, nursing a glass of champagne, she felt a familiar presence behind her. "You look beautiful tonight." Alex's voice was low, meant only for her ears. "Can we talk, please?" Michelle turned, her resolve weakening at the sight of him in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. She nodded, allowing him to lead her to a quiet corner of the room. "I miss you," Alex said simply, his eyes searching hers. "These past weeks have been hell. I know you're scared, Michelle, but what we have is special. It's worth fighting for." She felt tears pricking at her eyes. "Alex, Before she could finish, the room fell silent as the CEO took the stage for his annual address. Michelle and Alex turned their attention to the front, standing close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. As the CEO droned on about the company's successes, Michelle's mind raced. She thought about the joy Alex had brought into her life, the way he challenged her and made her feel alive. Was she really willing to give that up because of fear and societal expectations? Lost in thought, she almost missed the CEO's next words. "And now, I'd like to announce an exciting new venture. We'll be opening a branch office in Paris, and I'm pleased to say that Alex Caldwell has agreed to head up the project." Michelle's head snapped towards Alex, who looked equally shocked. The room erupted in applause, but she barely heard it over the roaring in her ears. Alex was leaving? To Paris? As the party resumed, Alex pulled her into a nearby empty office. "Michelle, I swear I didn't know about this. They just told me yesterday, and I was trying to figure out how to tell you." She leaned against the desk, her mind reeling. "When do you leave?" 2 weeks, he said softly. "It's a 2-year contract, with the possibility of extension." Michelle felt as though the floor had dropped out from beneath her. 2 years, an ocean apart. It was what she'd said she wanted. Space, an end to their complicated situation. So why did it feel like her heart was breaking? "I turned it down," Alex said suddenly. She looked up, startled. "What? Alex, this is an incredible opportunity. You can't pass it up because of us." He moved closer, taking her hands in his. "Michelle, listen to me. I love you. I don't want a life that doesn't have you in it. If you tell me right now that you don't feel the same, that you truly want me to go, I'll accept the position. But if there's any part of you that wants to see where this could go, I'm all in. No more hiding, no more excuses." Michelle's mind whirled with possibilities. A future with Alex, out in the open, building a life together. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. But could she really ask him to give up such an opportunity? "Alex," she began, her voice trembling, "I can't ask you to stay. Your career—" He silenced her with a gentle finger to her lips. "You're not asking. I'm choosing. My career is important, but not at the expense of love. Not at the expense of you." Michelle searched his eyes, seeing nothing but sincerity and love reflected back at her. In that moment, all her fears and doubts seemed to melt away. She thought of all the years she'd put her personal life on hold, always waiting for the perfect moment. Maybe there was no perfect moment, just the courage to seize happiness when it presented itself. Taking a deep breath, she made her decision. "Okay," she whispered. Alex's brow furrowed. "Okay?" A smile spread across Michelle's face, tentative at first but growing brighter by the second. "Okay, let's do this. Let's be together, really together. No more hiding." The joy that lit up Alex's face was breathtaking. He pulled her close, kissing her with a passion that left her dizzy. When they finally parted, both breathing heavily, he rested his forehead against hers. "I love you, Michelle Reeves," he murmured. "Age difference, work complications and all. We'll figure it out together." She laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "I love you too, Alex Caldwell. Now what do you say we get out of here and start planning our future?" Hand in hand, they slipped out of the party and into the crisp night air. As they walked down the festively lit street, Michelle felt a sense of excitement and possibility she hadn't experienced in ages. She didn't know exactly what the future held, but with Alex by her side, she was ready to face whatever came their way. The next morning, as sunlight streamed through her bedroom windows, Michelle woke to find Alex watching her with a tender smile. "Good morning, beautiful," he murmured, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She stretched languidly, reveling in the warmth of his body next to hers. Good morning. Last night wasn't a dream, was it?" Alex chuckled, pulling her close. "If it was, I never want to wake up." As they lay there, limbs intertwined, Michelle's mind drifted to the challenges that lay ahead. There would be raised eyebrows and whispered comments at work, no doubt. Friends and family might question their choices. But looking into Alex's eyes, she knew it was all worth it. "What are you thinking?" he asked, noticing her pensive expression. She traced the line of his jaw with her fingertips. "I'm thinking about how grateful I am that you came into my life, and how excited I am to see where this journey takes us." Alex kissed her softly, then pulled back with a mischievous glint in his eye. "Well, I have an idea for our first adventure." "Oh!" Michelle raised an eyebrow, intrigued. He grinned. "How do you feel about a weekend in Paris? I may have turned down the job, but I think we should still celebrate. Plus, I hear it's the city of love." Michelle laughed, her heart swelling with affection. "Paris sounds perfect. But you know what? As long as I'm with you, anywhere would feel like the city of love." As they began planning their impromptu getaway, Michelle marveled at how different her life looked from just a few months ago. She'd taken a risk, opened her heart, and found a love she never expected. The road ahead might not always be smooth, but with Alex by her side, she was ready for whatever twists and turns lay ahead. Their story was just beginning, and Michelle couldn't wait to see where it would lead.